Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Workbook Lesson 116. Got a picture up. It says, "What he has given me is all I want. What he has given me is all there is." I'm not sure where that part came from. Let's read a little bit. Maybe we can find out why together. Hope everybody's having a great morning so far. Appreciate all the listeners down below in the audience. If you'd like to, you can join us up here on the stage. I hear the audio is a little bit better and you can share, but it's up to you. Feel free to relax down there if that's better for you. I'm just going to quickly turn off the hand raise and turn it back on. And then, wait, it's gone. Well, because I'm not a moderator. That's why. I'm just lovely. There we go. Off and now open to everyone. All right. I think we're all set. Today's 116, a summary lesson of 101 and 102. Lesson 101 is God's will for me is perfect happiness. And 102 is I share God's will for happiness for me. These guys marry together very well. God's will for me is perfect happiness, and I share God's will for happiness for me. God's will for me is perfect happiness. God's will is perfect happiness for me, and I can suffer but from the ego's belief that there is another will apart from God's will. 102 is I share God's will for happiness for me. I share my Father's will for me, His Son. I'm His son. You guys are His son and daughter and everything else. God's will for me is perfect happiness. And a little bit lower music. I share my Father's will for me, His child. God's will for me is perfect happiness. What God has given me is all I want. What God has given me is all there is. So, at the top of the hour, we want to remember God's will for me is perfect happiness and come back to that. And on the half hour, remember that we share God's will for happiness for us by saying, I share God's will for happiness for me. That's it. Short and sweet today. I'm going to read the notes from lesson 102. Bear with me for a moment while I change screens here. Get back to it. Because I think it's easy to say God's will for me is perfect happiness, but it's harder for me to remember that I've got to share God's will to support the universe. Lesson 102, I share God's will for happiness for me, continues the theme that God's will is that you be happy. It even goes so far as to state that your real function is to be happy. This makes sense when you realize that God is not the judgmental, wrathful God your ego imagines, but rather only unconditional love. Being unconditional love, God would want its creation to be happy. You share God's will for you, since you also desire to be happy. You don't desire pain, suffering, and sacrifice, but being split-minded, you mistakenly believe you have sinned, so your future happiness must be earned. The ego's erroneous thought system believes that you're a limited, separate ego body struggling to survive in a world of sin, guilt, and fear. To escape this egoic nightmare, Your ego demands that you suffer and do penance for your sins if you're ever to be forgiven and granted any happiness in this or in future worlds. In contrast, the Holy Spirit knows that you remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. You are an individuated aspect of the One Self. You remain part of the holographic mind of God as an indivisible aspect of that one mind. You are on a quest of being and demonstrating various aspects of love. The Holy Spirit realizes that you desire to understand, know, and be your spiritual magnificence. As such, your decision to participate in the game of separation, or preferably the journey of reawakening, is not a sin, but merely an exercise in learning, understanding, demonstrating, and ultimately reawakening to the truth of who you really are. Through this adventure, the abstract one self knows itself in specific contexts. The ego has mistaken the journey of reawakening as a detour into fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Let that phrase take the power out of fear for you today. Fear is literally F-E-A-R, false evidence that appears to be real. The ego believes that you have sinned against your Creator, and therefore punishment and penance must be performed if you're ever to be forgiven for your past sins. Tell your ego it's fear, false evidence appearing real. Your ego's plan for salvation revolves around the idea that you must suffer in order to earn your salvation. It has transformed a God of unconditional love into a God of judgment, punishment, and something to fear. This is your ego's story, not God's truth. Where the ego sees a sinner, the Holy Spirit recognizes that God's sleeping child does not need to earn God's forgiveness, for there is nothing to forgive. Thank you. You remain sinless. Your ego's false belief that you are separate from the one self is a mistake that only needs correction, not punishment or sacrifice. Your ego's plan that calls for sacrifice, pain, and suffering can earn you nothing. That was so important, I had to stop and take a sip of coffee. Your ego's plan that calls for sacrifice, pain, and suffering can earn you nothing. Your divine birthright has never been lost, but it has been denied by your ego, because your ego's plan for your salvation requires you to suffer in the hopes of buying back your happiness, but instead it only buys fear. Sacrifice is a useless journey. Instead, follow the Holy Spirit's plan to reclaim your inheritance and recall that God's will is that you be happy. Your happiness is your ultimate function, for you are your Creator's treasure. Yesterday, or a couple of weeks ago, we asked the following question. When you believe you have wronged someone, does the other party's reaction to that event impact your ability to forgive yourself and then move on with life? In the story of the prodigal son, it was the father's knowledge that his son's happiness was his treasure that allowed the prodigal son to forgive himself and reclaim his inheritance. The son's plan called for the acceptance of the son's erroneous belief that he had wronged his father and lost his inheritance forever. But that was not his father's will. His father only wanted his son by his side so that he could see his son's happy face. The father knew that through the experience of separation, his son had gained wisdom about himself. It was his father's will that made it easy for the son to forgive himself and reclaim his inheritance. God, being unconditional love, only wants you to be happy. Drop your ego's useless plan to re-earn something that was never lost. Instead, follow the Holy Spirit's plan for your gentle reawakening to the truth. Your Creator awaits the return of its beloved child and the reclaiming of your divine inheritance. And I've got today's question. I'll pop it in the chat in a moment, but just to keep it in the back of your mind, it is, your ego believes you've sinned and must do penance. The Holy Spirit knows you to be sinless, and that your ego's beliefs are mistakes that only need correction, not punishment. Just like the prodigal son, in regards to forgiving yourself for your past choices, isn't it beneficial to know that God's will is for you to be happy? And I think it's an easy answer. Let's let it sit there for a minute and take a minute to become connected to our Mother Earth. Whatever surface is supporting you, know you're fully supported. And that's how life truly is. You're 100% supported. So every morning I like to remind myself, wherever I'm touching the ground, that I'm connected with everybody else and every other living being here. And so today, let's start from our base, our firm foundation, our connection to Mother Earth, who loves us and provides everything we need. And let that grow up through our body. We have these areas in our body that we call chakras. They just help us have some focal points. And it starts at the bottom and it comes right up. And our foundation is strong down in our root chakra. Dark in the color red, but firm in providing all of our physical needs. And as we come up the spine, we get into orange in the abdomen. We get into yellow in the solar plexus, right in our chest, where fire and bright yellow light like the sun shines. A little higher into our heart is green and love and air and all the space we need to love the world. Still going up into blue is our throat and sound, communication, and the ability to speak. Still higher into purples is our brow our third eye, right above our eyes. That's our intuition. It's indigo, a beautiful mixture of blue and violet. And violet's right on the top of our head, our seventh chakra, the crown. It's our thought, understanding, and higher sense. And if you could look down straight through your mind, straight through your head, down your spine, and combine all of those colors, you would see a pure white light. The eighth chakra above us and outside of us, our soul. Because our soul is bigger than our bodies. We are bigger than just these bodies, more than just these bodies. So take that pure white light. Imagine a high C if you can, and know that the vibrations of that audio put everything in a line. Lesson 116 today is reminding us to be happy. It's God's will for me is perfect happiness, and that I share God's will for happiness for me. Perfect happiness doesn't mean there isn't a crack in the teapot. It means that that crack is where the light gets in. And in the beautiful Japanese tradition where they use gold to fill in the cracks, it helps hold our container while we're here for a brief time. This container was our our invention, our body, our choice to come here and experience this world. And we're supposed to do it in a happy way. We didn't come here to suffer. That might be the result of our ego, but that doesn't mean we have to perpetuate it. So let's remember today, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And God's will is perfect happiness for each of us. We can suffer from the ego's belief that there is another will apart from God's will, that we have self-will. But as I used to hear in the 12-step groups, self-will run riot does not help us. The other lesson is I share God's will. Excuse me. I share God's will for happiness for me. I share God's will for happiness for me. I am His son. You are His child. In truth, and God's will for you is perfect happiness. What God has given me is all I want. What God has given me is all there is. So today, as we go through our day, let's set up some reminders for ourselves. It's only asking for one sentence on the hour and one sentence on the half hour. But it's important to take a moment or two and let those sink in. I have a tendency to go through my day and not come back to these, so I have to set a little reminder so that my phone puts the sentence in front of me. And I know that's okay, because whatever I can do to help myself get here is worth it. So join me in happiness today. Peace and balance can abide. Keep us there. Keep us in that happiness. Keep a smile on your face and a smile in your heart. Today, we can be free. And that is my share. I think that makes me complete. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. And I really appreciate you being here. Take a moment if you wish, or jump right in if you want. Love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Absolutely welcome to share on this topic if you can.
I,
Johnson?
I,
No? Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
uh, I think that it's important, that second one that it says, I share God's will for happiness for me, to realize that our ego, because it perceives us to be a sinner, and that's what it's been taught we are, that we're not as God created us, somehow we've sinned, that our ego's will is actually, or desire, is its belief that we need to suffer. And that's why I like that law of allowance or the law of karma. It's us, ourselves, our ego, that prevents us from having the happiness that God desires, because we think that we are sinners, need to earn something, and that transforms a learner, which is someone that can enjoy the process of reawakening, into somebody that has to struggle, always be judgmental in determining whether or not they've got the results and whether or not they have to do penance. So uh, we have to be willing to allow ourselves to accept God's will, realizing that God knows better than our ego what we truly are. And that acceptance will say that what we've done is just made mistakes along the way in our learning process. They were exactly what we needed to experience so that we could reawaken to the truth of who we really are. So there's no blame, shame, or guilt involved. There's just needs to be the realization that we can always choose again. And God's will is that we be happy. And if we choose for that, that's what we'll get. So it's our own ego that holds it against us and requires us to continue to suffer in its misbelief that we need to earn forgiveness from a God that has never condemned us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Janine.
Hey, Lee. I don't know. I know this is the truth, but my ego is stubborn. I mean,
Mine
it's.
too.
I mean, like some days I'm flying high and I feel like, yeah, I got it. And then for me, it's when things are happening, especially in business, and when things are sometimes breaking down and things aren't going as you have planned. To in that moment say, you know what, God wants me to be happy, and all these things because, in the midst of when you have to take action, um, sometimes you can make the not quote wrong decision, but you'll make a decision that may not be favorable to others. And sometimes it's hard to be happy in those moments. And I know what you mean about the crack in the teapot,
Yeah.
where, all right, there's this crack and there's still God's love shining through, and it's okay. But then it's like my mind will go in this loop of, oh, well, what about this? And when is this going to happen? And things look pretty bad right now, girl. You have these big dreams, but right now there's a mess. And to trust God for me, it's been tough. And just to let go in those moments, because I'll have to make decisions. And sometimes I feel like I'm not getting a clear answer about which direction to go in. And that's when my faith wavers in those moments. And I feel like my ego feels like, well, I have to take charge, and then I'll drop and go into fear. And I don't want to do that. I really do not. But yeah, I guess it's a continuing learning process.
I had my son teach me a little bit of this weekend. for some reason, Sunday morning, I was just not in a good mental place, and I just assumed that everybody else was there with me. Grace had her headphones on, so I assumed that means she didn't want to talk. And when I said that out loud, Dean, my 8-year-old, he told me the truth. He was like, maybe she's just listening to music. Let's ask. Let's find out. Let's give her a chance to say what the truth is instead of me assuming. My assumptions get me in trouble. I don't know about anybody else, but that was my big lesson on Sunday. Get rid of my own assumptions and ask and let other people tell me the truth instead of me assuming.
That's really sweet that he said that, and he's so right, so accurate about that. Yeah, my assumptions about the future are probably erroneous. They're probably off, and just because I can't see the big, the ending or see the outcome, doesn't mean it's not a beautiful outcome and not a disaster as my mind would have me believe it to be. So I don't know. I don't know how to get out of those. I'll get out of it sooner or later, but right now it's just tough.
Thanks,
Well,
Janine.
that's why
That's
we're here
wonderful.
to learn. So it takes time to learn those things so that we can have the better life. And often through the text and these lessons that we learn each morning to remind us each day and make it present in our minds going forward after a whole year at least once, those ideas start to neutralize a lot of the crap that we've been holding on to because we were taught it by people who probably, well, I'm not sure how to categorize it, but we were taught to hate by different people at different times in our lives, and certain things to hate, other things to love. All of that has to be questioned so it doesn't all get fixed all at once. It would be nice, but probably the idea is scary in and of itself along those lines. To completely change the way you think about everything. I mean, that's like a big order. And yet, it's a slow thing. It takes time. And the book says if you continue to work these lessons, you will shorten the time it takes to get to learn these things. So when other people have come and mentioned, "Oh yeah, I learned that in the Quran," or "I learned that in this place or that place," I just smile because and probably just say a lot of these things are said by others. What I'd like to point out here is that this book says it all, probably in as efficient a manner as has been ever done. And there probably isn't very much that is totally new, except for the point of view. The point of view is very important to me, and it encompasses what's in the book. Well, where is that point of view coming from? It's coming from way up high, so to speak, or let's say way down deep. It has the entire picture, which is simply God, hologrammatically speaking, in mind when it says, here's how you navigate this minefield. That's how you navigate that minefield. Because that's what happens while we're trudging up this mountain to peace forever, happiness forever. I think that's where time comes in my book. Um, and I think it's important to remember that. And when sometimes this book has actually said this can save you several thousand years. Well, that's quite a statement when you think about it. And I don't know anyone else who could make that statement except the true author of this book. So that's my 2 cents so far. Thanks.
Well, in regards to Janine, uh, God's will is that we be happy. Uh, And what we have to do is beware of trying to avoid the mistake of the prodigal son. The mistake of the prodigal son is that he thought if he had his inheritance and he could go off on his own, uh, he could find happiness in a world that really was not his home. Uh, and what we often try and do is when we look for answers, we make the illusion that this world has some ability to change us, or this world is a place where we have to earn our salvation. We make that real in our own mind rather than just accept the love of God, realizing that in this fear based world of the collective consciousness, this is not our home. And our home and what God really wants us to do is to return to the truth that we are part of that one self, perfect, whole, and complete. We've never, the idea of separation is an illusion created in our own mind. Heal that illusion or wake up from the illusion of the truth and go back home. So part of our problem when we're trying to deal with this world is that we believe it has some consequence or some ability to cause us to lose our inner peace. And if we realize that an illusion has no impact on reality, we can still maintain our peace, or we can recover that inner peace if we've lost it because of our fear. So, uh, our goal is not really to be quote unquote perfectly happy. Our goal is to have inner peace, which is to have our principles and live our principles that we've determined to guide our life. And hopefully, those principles are the truth that we are God's beloved child with whom she is well pleased. And therefore, we can accept the idea that we're here to grow and learn, and that I am not a body, I am free, I am still as God created me. Nothing sources my experience but me, and nothing can rob me of my inner peace unless I choose to allow it. If I allow the ego to say that I'm an earner, then I will be in fear. If I realize that I am God's beloved child and that this illusion, this world, that we're a spiritual being having an earthly experience rather than a earthly being once in a while dreaming that we're some higher self. Uh, that's the truth that we need to reawaken to. And, you know, maybe part of your purpose here is to reawaken that an illusion cannot substitute for the true happiness of what you really are in God's will. I hope that helps. That's, a big picture, but that's where we're all ultimately going to reawaken to. Thank you.
That helped a lot. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, the part about this not being our home and that this is all an illusion. And especially when it comes to money, I mean, for Pete's sake, we created all that in this world. It's very ego based, and yeah, part of what we need in this human experience to barter and then get things, but it's not really real. I mean, it's not really nowhere near as important as we make it at all. It is not, about the truth of who we are. So yeah, I definitely got some relief from that. Thank you so much, and thank you, Bob, too.
There's nothing wrong with having what the Course might call a happy dream. We can still be happy, healthy, and abundant right here. if that's the dream that we want. But to have that, we have to give ourselves permission to say that that's our that's what we want. That's our desire, and realizing that that's just part of a role that we want to play. The law of allowance says that no matter how happy or no matter how deserving and qualified I am to have any uh, particular life, I will never have the life of my dreams until I can imagine it for myself and give myself permission to have that. If you're not happy, healthy, and abundant, and that's not your desire, then you have to look and say, what do I believe about myself? And if you go deep down, you'll find that there's a default belief that says I'm still an earner and that I have to do penance and suffer because I do not believe I'm God's beloved child. And that may, you know, that's something that we need to realize. It's us. It's my own mind that prevents me from, if we want to be happy, healthy, and abundant, from that. It's my own mind because God's will is that I be happy. And ultimately, whenever we realize the truth of what we really are, we'll realize that, our purpose here is to reawaken to that truth. Our purpose is to perhaps help others reawaken to that truth. And it's to be true to the principles that we've been determined to live our life. So this world of time and space throws circumstances our way so that we can hone our skills and ask our higher self, what would love have me do? And then respond appropriately in alignment with the principles that we've said are our self-identity in this time and space. And that will restore your inner peace. Your inner peace is always going to be in alignment when your actions are living in accordance with your principles. So although in time and space we do not have liberty of choice, we have limited options. We always have 100% control of our interpretation and how we choose to respond, and whether or not we're going to respond with fear or love. Thank you.
Well, today we can choose happiness. If you haven't set a reminder for yourself, please do it. I've got an app that I use. It's called ACIM Remind. But you could just use the timer if you want, something that reminds you every 30 minutes just to check back in. Or maybe you need to write it on the inside of your wrist so that it's really clear. Sometimes you need to go that far. But today I share God's will for happiness for me. God's will for me is perfect happiness, is the message. And if you've got anything that you'd like to share, or if you're down below, please raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, you can have a perfectly peaceful day. We accomplished our task. And I could read through the lesson one more time, because as you know, it only takes a moment or two. But I just want everybody to get this message so that they can have a wonderful day. Stay happy today.
I do have another thought that I'd like to share, and I'm not sure if I have it all figured out yet. So it's just a thought under construction. We all have some idea, good or bad, but it's generally partially correct and partially not, of what God is. And this idea of God was nurtured or blasphemed, let's say, by some of our people that in our lives that had various and sundry opinions. For example, what happens if one of the parents believes in God unconditionally and 100%? At least it seems so, and the other parent doesn't. What does the child end up with? Well, in a way, it's anybody's guess. But the question is that I have right now is when the book says, and this is a question of my question to the book in a sense, when it says that love is real and fear is not real. When it says fear is not real, we can look at that FEAR and say it appears real, but it's not really real. What does a person say who's scared to death about something? What do you mean it's not real? I'm feeling it. It's real. What do you say to a person like that? And if it's not real, what is it or where is it? And how come I'm feeling it anyway? This is a conundrum. What do you say? Where does this thing come from if it's not real? Well, the only answer that starts to explain it is you have to think about the difference between being asleep and being awake. And that in a dream, everything can appear a certain way, but when you wake up, lo and behold, there was nothing to fear. So it's almost impossible to explain that notion itself with just words without picturing, okay, yeah, if I'm asleep, I'm seeing things, I'm believing things, I'm experiencing things in some fashion. It feels real, but then you wake up and you say, it wasn't real. So it's a decision. It's a decision that it's made upon awakening. Well, how do we hasten this awakening if that's the way it is? And that's what the book is about. That's what our training and learning is about, is how to spot the things in our lives that are either causing us fear or happiness and evaluate those things. This is the best information that we have to be able to make those decisions because, who wants to live in fear? And so we have these guidelines, we have road signs, and we have lessons to train ourselves to try and adhere to the things that we are sure are real. And this book is pointing those out to us over and over. And there isn't a lesson here that doesn't have some kind of truth to consider, at least. If we consider it a certain number of hours a day or how often, the more we do take that into account, the sooner we're going to be able to emerge from sleep at this new level and be able to see things in a new light. So it does work together. There seems to be a good pattern set for us with the way this book is done. And the genius of the author is that it's in three parts. One of them just lays it out, the text. The second one gives us training. That's where we are now. And the end result of training is that ultimately people can help teach this stuff and help other people to get happy. But just because we open the book doesn't mean that we're going to be happy instantly and forever. It would be nice. But you can't buy a ticket for that. You can't, as Tom says often, you can't earn it. You have to learn it, and we have to apply it. The good news is that we have a way of getting out of our mess, of waking up, that truly works. And in that way, specifically, I believe it transcends any other way of getting to that total happiness. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, He's the way, and it's the only way to get where we're all trying to go. And I have had many discussions with Hindus and Muslims and people of other faiths, and they can get very, very far. But there comes a time when push comes to shove, and you want to know, okay, which way do I go this time? Maybe Buddhism helped me for a while, or even Judaism helped me for a while. What do I personally need to do to make this work for me, to wake me up? And I think it's nice that it woke other people up, but some of them I don't particularly care for anyway. So what's important is I can wake up to what I would like, and that is freedom from fear, and to be happy, and to be loving, and to do these kinds of things that we have all agreed upon looking through this book. That's what we want. It's a pretty big statement, and I'm probably going to be challenged by other people if I just go around saying that out loud. But I did want to say it here, and I'm still not sure exactly how to say it to other people, but it's what I believe. So I'd welcome anyone else who can tell me there, because this course lesson today says, what God has given me is all I want. What He has given me is all there is. And so that tells me everything else is not real. It's a dream of some other, something
No,
other than what we are.
I but what I understand out of this is like whatever you see, if it is good or bad, it's all that you have been wanting for. God doesn't know if it is positive or negative. It's something that you created yourself because it comes from one single idea of separation. I was talking with my ex-husband, I don't know if it was yesterday or something, and it's funny because he now sees me like his therapist. And he was a little bit like embarrassed to ask me again about the person of his affections right now, because he always ends up asking me things about how to how to manage his emotions about her. So yesterday he was at the end of the call like, "Hey, can I ask you a last question? And I hope it doesn't take much of your time." And he said, "It's about Paloma." And it was, yeah, well, let me just connect with the Holy Spirit to be inspired of this because I don't want to take much time on it. But yeah, go ahead. And he started to said to me like, it's just that I have people around me that, of course, I know who they are. And he said, people around me always tells me like I should just how do I say that in that sentence? Tell her to go away. Yeah, how do I tell her to go away? People is telling me to send her to hell or whatever, something like that. People that it's around him because he is in this kind of conflict that she seems to love him, but she's not sure to have a relationship with him. So he wants to have the relationship now because he loves her, and well, it's like a telenovela at some point. but but he was telling me like people is telling me that, and I don't know. It's just that I d- I know that she hasn't been clear, and I should be wasting my time, but it doesn't feel right. And I said, well, you have your answer. How does it feel? So I had to start asking him like, well, how does it feel if you really do what people is telling you to do? Well, it doesn't feel good. Okay. How does it feel uh, if you understand that you can never possess her or have her in your life? No, well, that doesn't feel good. How does it feel that you don't belong to anybody else? And he said, well, that doesn't feel good either. And how does it feel to 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 know that you are not your body? And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, there's the answer. As you haven't even questioned yourself that you are not your body, you will be always looking for things outside of you, like if you were lacking something, because you are so attached to the experience of the physical level that you are missing the entire spiritual part of you, that it's the essence of who you are. You think you're a guy that needs a girl that can provide physical things for you to be happy, and that's not true. And he started to say, I think I'm getting it. And I say, yeah. So the problem is not that you see things. I mean, the problem is not that God has given you wealth or not. The problem is that you think that those things comes from God. Like if God has put you in that specific dilemma, and that was just an illusion of separation. It's not that the pain is not there. Of course, that if people is in pain, they are feeling and experiencing pain, but that pain and that experience is not something that God imposed onto us. It was something that we decided that we wanted to live because we wanted to experience this illusion in some form. And it's really hard to give this idea to somebody who has no exploration in her spirituality. But for that matter, you get to speak about, for example, how does it feel? With the example that I give to Kurt, I was asking him, how does it feel to send Paloma to hell? And he said, well, no, that doesn't feel good because it doesn't comes from love. All the things that he needed to do. I mean, I have always been telling him ever since he started to open himself to be more honest with his feelings, and he is that he was starting to feel more his heart and more emotional and things like that. I have always been repeating him, but I don't know, because he told me it's just that you tell me those things and you give me peace of mind, but then I hang up and I go by my day and I forgot. So I need to remember. So I said to him, you need to put, I don't know, like a bracelet or something, and every time you have to make a choice, and every time you need to face something that it's kind of um, blurry, what is the most loving thing that you can do? Let aside the idea of God, let aside the idea of energy or karma or whatever. What does it feel? How does it feel to do one way or another? And you just move around with the most peaceful or calm or less or more expansive um, feeling over the decisions you have to make, even if the decision means to say no to somebody, because you are not lacking anything, because you are not your body, because you are whatever. But of course, we will not say that to somebody that doesn't have this kind of knowledge in their minds. But it's a good way to help people to make decisions and to understand that everything that has been given to us has been given because we want it, and because we are part of God, and God only knows how to how to be. He only is. So if you want conflict, he is conflict. If you want love, you can experience God in love too. I mean, everything is God. You just are experiencing the illusion of separation. We are all. So
I sure am
I
glad you finally got this book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, we
I don't
can.
know if I don't know if this was aligned with what you were trying to um analyze, Bob, but yeah, he has given me all there is, even the conflict. I wanted that for some reason, higher reason to go back to him, probably.
Well, I'm glad you got it.
I wanted
Yeah.
to share something hi on the
Hi,
topic of
Tamara.
hello on the topic of like some of the things that we've been talking about this morning. Um, like I like the idea that we have our own curriculum as we engage, like that we're engaged with the course, but that our curriculum is our life and our world in some ways. So what we encounter, and I because Bob, you had said that um you find that this course is really the only way uh, for you. And I obviously am different than you because I have another path that I've been engaging with for a really long time. And I fit the course into that because the course makes sense and is in alignment with that. And it doesn't contradict it, it enhances it and supports it. And I do a lot. Like I have a lot of tools for reprogramming my mind towards God, uh, and the course is great, and I'm sure it is enough for a lot of people. Like I mean, I think Tom seems to really sort of get the course, and it's working for him exclusively. But for me, um, yeah, I need a lot. I need a lot of support and a lot of things, and good things, not So I'm as I was listening, because of I think Janine's question, I was I wanted to say again, initially after Janine's question, I was like, well, you got to reprogram the subconscious mind. But like I say that all the time, and I don't know if anybody listens to that or understands that that's exactly what the course, in my understanding and my experience, that's exactly what the course is doing. It's reprogramming the mind to have this like the correct perception, or to know the truth as opposed to knowing or thinking it knows what's not true, because it's just a shift in perception, it's a shift in belief. And what I like about the course, and what I liked about it the first time I engaged with it, it made sense to me because I understood how impressionable and how programmable the mind can be. And I was like, oh, this is just inserting consistent thoughts that are true belief into the mind. And that makes sense. And I love the language of religion, and I don't mind the language of Christianity or Christ, etc. But I have as I was listening, I made a little list, and I was like, what are the things that I do to program my mind towards happiness, or to program my mind to see and think and feel happiness. And one of them is specifically this reprogramming work I've been doing with a woman who is trained as a psychotherapist, cognitive behavioral therapy, and who also studied Course in Miracles and other, and hypnosis and other kinds of things for reprogramming the mind. And she has very, very practical and um, I think effective tools for locating negative beliefs. So if you unpack fear, there are different kinds of fears. So just locating what the negative belief is and how to reprogram it. So there's that work, but also other things that I used in my life, which I still use, which supplement my supplement or are just like part of my curriculum. I don't know how you want to think of it, or just like are my go-to's when when things happen, and I you know and it's harder to remember that that all there is happiness, all there is God's love, is mantras. So I think of the course in some ways, the daily lesson as a mantra. So sometimes I'll repeat, I'll repeat the daily lesson. Like if something challenging is happening, I'll repeat the daily lesson, or I'm not so great with like, my mind just sort of grabs whatever. So frequently I'll just grab another lesson, like I can see peace instead of this, or let all my grievances be miracles, or whenever I'm feeling disturbed, I just repeat a phrase from the course, so that helps. But also I like Sanskrit mantras, and especially kirtan, so with music. And also I like to I also chant scriptures, Sanskrit scriptures, because they have vibrations, and the mind is a vibration. So if the negative thoughts are low vibrations and positive thoughts are high vibrations, so when I'm caught up in in low vibration thoughts, I some things, if someone doesn't like mantras, just even like sound frequencies, or that target, or like, you know, um, yeah, those kinds of things can bring the mind to a higher vibration. And for me, consistently over time, because I used to have a lot of depression and a lot of negative thoughts, consistently over time, like I have mantras playing in my space all the time, and they are, how the mind just like picks up stuff and replays, music and ideas and things like that. My mind is just always replaying mantras. So that's a very helpful thing for me. And yeah, and so the other things I have is, so like what Bob says is, how Jesus said, I'm the only way, or something like that. Well, how I understand that in my world and experience, and also based on my experience with my other path, is that that's just grace is the only way. Whatever um, your access, and grace is frequently through some sort of conduit, like a guru you know uh so I think of Jesus as a guru, and I think whatever your conduit for grace is, that's the way. And there could be many of them. And also in that sense, for me, devotion to my guru is also a heart opening path. So so then I'll read either the course. You can read the course, or like read scriptures, or I read books from my guru, or I check out her website, because it's always updated and always full of her teachings, which always connect me to grace and open my heart and remind me about love. And yeah, and that's it. And then of course because I think a lot of these negative thought patterns, um, the subconscious mind is just like a really powerful computer, right? Like it just it's programmed. And I think a lot of those programs, even doing this CBT reprogramming work, which is amazing, sometimes they're kind of wrapped around certain like experiences that are traumatic, and sort of unpacking some of the beliefs and patterns that came from that is helpful. So I do therapy. So those are my resources for like turning my mind back to happiness. Share.
Tamara, I think we're probably more similar than not, because I followed so many different paths to get to Course in Miracles when I finally did. Now, it was around during all those years, and I didn't know about it, so I took whatever path I could get at the time, and it was all good. And I would I, I'm glad you said something, because I don't think that it's necessary only to follow the entire path of Course in Miracles the way it's laid out to get all the way. Okay, all the way is a big question, though. Where are we going? I do think that it does save time That was the main part of what I was saying. And I do think that many other pathways help us even more so. Maybe at some specific point while we're still learning, maybe we learn 20%, 30%, 50, 60%, and we get it. So I'm not here to say, and I would never say, that any other path is absolutely wrong. It's really just a matter of judging whether it's getting you where you're trying to go or not. And if you have something that's getting you where you're trying to go right now, that's exactly the place you need to be. For me, I found at this point in my life that this has more of the truths that I have put together in some cases in my mind, truths that have come from experience, truths that have come from reading different ways of getting up the mountain, and then I have my own personal way of how do I get up this mountain. And if there were steps, if there was an escalator, it would be nice. If I could burrow into the bottom of the mountain and take an elevator up, it'd be even better, easier and faster. I don't know how to find that elevator, never been able to. So I completely understand where you're coming from, and I love you for it. I think it's great that you're mentioning that, because if the context which I made, which I presented, said it's the only way, that's a quote from the Bible. There is no other way except by me, and I'm not even sure exactly. I think it was Jesus who said that at that time. We'll let him have that particular thing, and I can put that aside and say I got some other little sideways that I want to go, and so I can go and I can test it. We're free to do anything and go anywhere that we can manage to do. It's only a
Hmm.
matter of what's going to work best, and that was what my point was for me. Um,
Hmm.
that's it. I sure would like to hear
Oh,
from others. Look at George's.
Yeah.
I want to read
Oh,
through the lesson
I
one
was
more
gonna.
time,
Okay, I will wait.
and it will be super brief because it's a short lesson. But just to bring it back in, since some people may have missed it at the first time. So today, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And the second lesson in the review is I share God's will for happiness for me. God's will is perfect happiness for me. I can suffer, but from the belief that there's another will apart from His. Our own will is just a belief that it's apart from His. We are already aligned in perfect happiness. And the second one, I share God's will for happiness for me, says, I share my Father's will for me, His child. What God has given me is all I want. What God has given me is all there is. So on the hour, it's God's will for me is perfect happiness. And on the half hour, I share God's will for happiness for me. Thank you.
I was going to jump in after Tamra. Yeah, I also use different tools, Tamra, and one is Kundalini Yoga or Breath of Fire. Um, and I guess we all relate. We all have our different or unique paths. Just because we're all unique expressions of God, and it makes sense that we resonate differently, or uniquely with different modalities or different tools to find a path, or connect with that path of joy, peace, and happiness. And for me, I have to engage my body. I remember somebody had said to me one time, "Well, I don't see what is the point of Breath of Fire?" And I thought, well, if you have to ask that question and that's how you feel, that's fine. It's one of those things that has to be experienced, and to put it into words. But for me, I will find a shift, like a clearance, if you will, of thought patterns through yoga, through that type of yoga, and also physical yoga, more movement type yoga. I'll find that release, which opens me up to connect more with God. And then some people just don't need that, or use that particular tool. And I think with all the tools, I think it's in the application. When we can apply, when we can be in that presence. And I was listening to this a really wise woman, and she was in business, and she was teaching women how to empower themselves in the face of conflict in business in particular. And if there's been, say, maybe you've been disrespected, or there's an argument, or these different things you might experience during business. And she said something like, you're going to have conflict in life, period. There's going to be conflict. And can you apply these, what you've learned in the midst of conflict? Can you love a person, your brother or sister, right there in the midst of conflict? And that says everything about who you are and your character. So, yesterday and I did that for myself. Yesterday, my contractor was still angry with me about a business decision I had made. And I could see that he was angry. So, we went there again in discussion. He was calmed down a bit, but I could tell he was still upset with me. And I had given it a lot of thought actually before I saw him. Um, I asked myself, what is the outcome that you want? Kind of like a questioning, like you did, Adriana, for your ex. Like, how are you feeling about this? And because my ego decided, well, you know what? I don't need him. I can get another contractor. I don't need this crap, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, do you really want to go down that path? Like the man has done excellent work for you. He's really dedicated. Okay, maybe he's mad right now, but it doesn't necessarily mean he wants to be done with the job. And I really took myself down the path of what I wanted to see happen. And I thought, why? I don't really want to get rid of him. I want to get through this conflict. And I could imagine his face. And, we really, I thought, developed a friendship. And I care for him. I care about him and love him. And I thought, I know he wants to get paid. He hasn't done all this work for nothing. I don't really believe he wants to leave. And I want to see him stay. So I said to myself, if you want to see him stay, what is it you want to say to him? How do you help him and yourself to shift out of the situation and move forward? And the answer was, well, love. You have to see him, surround him in love. You have to really love him through this, and yourself. And so I said, okay, I have to shift into love. How can I see him in love, in the light of love? And because even in business, it works, you know. And it's funny, I'm saying all this to you now because I know what I said earlier, that I kind of stuck in fear. After I went through all this beautiful exercise, I would drop back into fear later on. But anyway, but it helps me talking about this, that I did shift into love. And when I saw him, I was in that space. And there was another group of contractors around installing the kitchen. I kind of made a joke because she said making jokes can also diffuse a situation. So when I showed up at the flip, the other guys were like, well, here she is. He must have been saying, he's waiting on me or whatever. He's like, yeah, I see her. And he like brushed by me. I said, well, he's still mad at me, but I love him anyway. And they kind of chuckled.
Perfect. That's a great reaction.
Yeah, it just came out of me. And I think that was the beginning of diffusing the situation. And
Laughter helps. Yeah.
yeah, and then we were talking privately. I just kept going back to what I really wanted to. I wanted to get through the conflict because it really was meaningless in the grand scheme of things. And I just applied that and went into that space of love and peace and accepting him. And I also gave him and you know what, an option. Like, if you want to leave, I understand. Just let me know so I can find another contractor. Like I realized in that moment, you can't control him, and it's not up to you to make a decision for him. He's free. He's free to go, and it's okay if he goes. Either way, it'll be fine. And so yeah, I was really actually happy in that moment. Then when I left the scene and everything, for some reason,
Uh-oh.
What happened, my friend? I can hear you. Janine, you
She's
muted.
muted again.
Janine, you are muted. You did it for, well, ah, no.
No, that was me. Well,
Okay.
Janine, if you can come back to us, that would be great. Go ahead, Tamara.
I just wanted to say I want to add yoga to my list because, yeah, I do a lot of yoga. I love it.
Yes,
Awesome.
that is wonderful. Good for us
Yeah,
to align our bodies.
yeah. I wanted to say, like, in regards to my path, and everybody's on their own perfect path. You get what you need, but I think I'm more like Tamara, because I Course in Miracles was something that was uh, something that came very late in the life, and I had gone through other paths to get where I was, and I think that probably the idea of Course in Miracles, whenever it came across, I really wasn't looking for it because I already had found what I was looking for. So I, you know, whatever way works for you works for you. That's your perfect path. The one thing that I do like about A Course in Miracles is that it does have the workbook lessons, and the so many times, especially in our intellectual world, people try to understand ideas rather than live those ideas. And the workbook is a way for people to actually have a experiential uh, learning opportunity, and it's very organized and complete. Whereas if we went through some other way through a guru or uh, psychoanalysis or changing beliefs, which might have been, as Tamara said, might have been a lot of my path, and the Eastern religions. Those are uh, very personal, uh, a personal experience, whereas the Course in Miracles workbook says, here's 365 lessons. Do this. You don't need a guru. You don't need anything. You just do it.
You don't
And
have to believe
if
it.
you, yeah, if you understand, it'll kind of help you get to the promised land. If you want to meander around, you can do that if you want. And a lot of people obviously start with the Course in Miracles, and they don't get any place either because they don't really either understand the workbook lessons or don't apply them. They give up. So there's no perfect path for anyone. The Course says there's a lot of ways up the mountain. The idea that you've come across the Course in Miracles might be an indication that it might have something to do with your path, but there's a lot of ways up there, and truth is truth, and when you find it for yourself, just follow it. Course in Miracles is one way. Like I say, for me, it wasn't probably my way, but when I see what, as an after effect, look at it, I realize that it gives a lot of people the ability to get up that mountain and be guided. So, you're on your own perfect path. Do everything that works. The only thing that I might say, a lot of people dabble, uh, and they dabble with one thing, dabble with another, and they don't stick to it. Focus, and the focus is getting home. The focus is getting home, and don't just give up on various paths because you're not satisfied with them. Uh, just maintain focus, ask for guidance, and the Course says when you're ready, the teacher will arrive. And just use that expectant anticipation and know that it's there for you, and be open to it. when you find it, and it'll find you. Thank you.
I guess you guys realize my phone died, and it's funny, like,
There it
I'm
is.
talking and talking and talking, and I'm like, oh. I looked down at that, so I have no idea what you heard last.
And you were,
It's
oh
funny.
no, Janine, you muted yourself, and nothing
No,
came back.
it's fine. I think I said everything I wanted to say. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. I really love this discussion, and it reminds me of one of the things that helped me feel comfortable stepping into A Course in Miracles as my practice. And for me, it started with the cover of the book, and the cover of the book has no author listed, and it says A Course in Miracles and not The Course in Miracles. In other words, the Course in Miracles declares on the cover of the book, and also in other more specific ways inside, that it's not proclaiming that it's the way or the only way, it's a way. And I believe it says inside the book that there are thousands of ways, and that we're all going to get there eventually, but A Course in Miracles is meant to save time in getting there. And so I've said to people in the past before, God really doesn't care if what gets you to peace is having your meditation or your mantra is the joys of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It really doesn't matter. It's that you get there, and that you continue to step towards the reality of peace. And so there's, just so many ways. And I'm glad to be here and hear this discussion. So thank you. I yield the mic.
Peanut butter and jelly makes me happy. Hi, Rainbow.
Hey, I just wanted to add something there. Um, when I first found A Course in Miracles, it fell in my lap online, and I started reading it, and it was very inspiring. But for
How
some
is that
reason,
fell in your lap? I'm sorry, I just curious.
you know how things just happen. I don't
Okay.
remember the circumstances exactly, but somehow I started reading it online, and I'm a book seeker, so I'm always looking for information. And I sort of stopped reading it at one point. I guess it seemed overwhelming and so big and so much information. And at any point, the book Disappearance of the Universe fell in my lap, and I read that all the way through because it's like a novel and it's kind of entertaining. And it talks about A Course in Miracles, and it really put a fire under my butt. And I picked back up the blue book, and I started getting back into it. And so when Tamara was talking, I was like, "Oh, Disappearance of the Universe, you got to tell her about that book." Cuz it really helps. I don't know, just it's another way, like she was saying, she does mantras and just ways to keep you on track. And it was one thing that really brought me back to A Course in Miracles. And I just wanted to mention that book.
I love I love that book. I've read it a couple of times. It's
Oh,
amazing.
isn't it
Yeah,
great?
enjoy it. Yeah,
It's
it's a good book.
funny, it's interesting, and it has so many answers to holes in our understanding
Yeah.
of religion and things like that, that it's really a helpful way to go to go and find Course in Miracles more, A Course in Miracles more ah, more easy to understand. I'm sorry that I didn't
Yeah, it seems so
formulate that
What
big. It
what
just
what
so
seems
book
like
well.
is
such a
that,
big
Rainbow?
thing.
What book did you mention, Rainbow? I missed that.
It's a Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
No
and
problem.
and I'll add about that book, Disappearance of the Universe, that I've read for me, I've read the book and listened to the audio version of the book. And for me to hear Gary actually speak the book, I got mine on Audible. It had a bigger impact than reading the book itself. So
Yeah,
if you're
he's
an
amazing.
if you're an audiobook person, then that you might find that useful.
Yeah, in fact, all the books from Gary Renard are quite something. I
I
have
was just
enjoyed
thinking that.
all of them, and I'm waiting for the fifth to come out. He's finishing the fifth book with more information from Arten and Pursa. So if you want to start with Gary Renard, yeah, you should start with the Disappearance of the Universe. But he has another three books. Love hasn't love. How is it? It's just that I remember the titles in Spanish. Love hasn't forgotten anybody, or I don't know, something like that. The times when Buddha and Jesus met,
Well,
something
that's a
like
good one.
that. Yeah, that it's the I think it's the fourth one, and I'm missing one. Oh,
I can't
love
recall
hasn't
them.
forgotten.
Sorry.
Love hasn't forgotten anyone. Yeah, you can Google that.
I'd
Yeah.
be interested in reading that. Um,
The immortal self or something.
I'd be interested in reading that and then sharing, thoughts like this. Yeah.
I'm interested. I haven't read the Jesus Buddha one. I would love to actually. I'd love to read that one and have a conversation about it. That would be fun.
That one's
It's
one of the new ones.
beautiful.
He just came
I
out with
would
that
do
about
that.
4 years ago.
Yeah, I would do that too.
I've also been, Andy mentioned Neville Goddard a while ago, and I went down into a new thought hole. And there's one particular book. Um, I have to look for the exact title, but it's something about the subconscious mind. And I feel like it really a lot. I mean, it is a very it is non-dual, and a lot of the ideas overlap with A Course in Miracles, and it's really that's great stuff too. If anybody's interested,
Yeah, that one helped me really understand A Course in Miracles a lot easier. Let me see if I can find the name of that.
and
I have the whole compilation, but the whole
if I
collection.
can if I can give a little plug for the text that I'm writing my dissertation on, there's an English translation that's not very it's not great philologically. Like he just sort of skips over some of the complicated passages and he uses a later text, which is corrupt, whatever. But nonetheless, that this English translation is very readable and amazing, and it's called Vasishta's Yoga, and it's really thick and but it's full of like these amazing stories of all these of just like mind-born worlds, and it's it got a like just such a
I've
I mean,
read.
for me, it just blows my mind. It's just such a great text. So if anybody wants to read that and have a conversation about it, I would love that
Oh,
too.
I would do that too.
Okay.
Because I have that and I've read it, and that's how I actually
Oh.
became even more aware of myself, and I didn't understand why I understood that so well. So,
Did you read the concise one, or did you read the Vasishta's Yoga, the thicker one?
I guess I don't know. I'll have to.
Okay.
I think it was. Okay. I guess I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to look. It's in my phone still, actually.
Okay, let's have a that would be
Okay,
awesome.
let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All roads leads to Rome, right? Is the way you said it in English?
Yeah.
All roads leads to Rome. It's funny because I told this to my ex-husband in a call yesterday, and and then I figured that Rome in Spanish is Roma. And when you change the word, I mean, you see it backwards, you know how the book tells us that we are always seeing things in in an upside way or something like that. When you put the word upside down or the other way, it's love, amor. So it's funny because in the level of the form, all roads leads to Rome, but it's truly the reverse way of the word Roma. All the roads leads to love, amor. I wanted to
Just
share
like
that
the
because
Beatles. The
yeah,
Beatles say all you need is love.
yeah, it is. It is. It doesn't matter if it is A Course in Miracles or any other practice in spirituality or creativity itself. I mean, painting, singing, playing music, creating something. It's all part of one single uh, thought of creation and oneness. Whatever is not oneness and feeling of being at peace is just an idea of separation, a thought of being apart. And that is painful, of course. That's why we get into conflicts so often. So I wanted to share that. And I
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
and I will also agree with having, after we end this year with these lessons, I will gladly agree on having another like book room about Gary Renard's experiences with Arthur and Purza, because they are really, really interesting. But well, let's continue with our other discussions here.
But I want to jump in and say Neville. I've listened to Neville Goddard on YouTube. Just free videos on that. Or I'd like to listen, and it's I think it's probably a lot of things like that on YouTube, where they are reading books. And I think there's this thing about some kind of, I don't know what to call it, like a grandfathering or something. But after a book has been published, if after a certain number of years, it's free to be shared anywhere. I think, I don't know what, somebody probably knows
The
what that
copyright.
Public
is.
domain.
Yeah,
Public
it becomes
domain.
public domain. That's
Tom's an expert in that.
And there are a lot of mystical books that are public domain. I am Rosa J, doing it God's way each and every day, and I've been listening. Mm, listening for the last couple of days. You guys are amazing. I have not read any of the books that you have noticed or mentioned in this whole process. The Course in Miracles kind of found me and kept finding me and kept finding me until I just started in the whole workbook series, and Love and Forgiveness began to be my course in life. And this was like 14 years ago. And unlike a lot of people, I just kind of stuck with the workbook until it became part of a simple method of living in God's world. As you know, most of you have heard me say my mantra, uh, I am Rosa J, doing it God's way each and every day. That's my only way. And it kicks me in my butt constantly. That whole love and forgiveness thing. And I am one who believes that love cures everything in time. So I don't really, if I have a disturbance with anybody in my life, I just send some love to them. I don't try to explain my way through it. I don't try to define my whole idea or concept. I just send them love and let love work it out. And it usually does in the spiritual world. And sometimes it takes a long time for it to manifest in our physical world. But I'm willing to wait. I find that when I try to explain the concepts of my life, a lot of people can't get with it. They'll say, "Oh, that's too zen for me. I can't just forgive because I have to blame somebody for the situation." And I don't think that it's important for me to blame anybody, but just let God work it out. And that seems kind of crazy to most people. Um, but I just find it easier for me to live in happiness when I'm not trying to explain myself to someone who is not a spiritual being or
I'm with you.
recognizes the spirituality is more important than the physical, because most of us use our eyes to see, but not our hearts to know. And I used to wonder how people would say, "Just take it down to love, Rose. Do this from your heart." And I didn't understand what they were saying 10 years ago, but I understand now that sometimes in our world, we are conflicted with what our eyes see and what our heart feels and knows to be the truth. And for me, I have to actually go into that whole, what the Course teaches about love and forgiveness. No matter who's at fault or who we see at fault, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're both um, free, because in any relationship, it takes two. And sometimes our physical world overpowers our heart world. And I like to live from my heart. I like to be in control of my emotions that would immediately come to defend. And as the Course says, I don't have to defend myself against anything. I can't be attacked. That's just my ego saying that I am. So when you're living from your heart as opposed to your mind, there comes conflict, you know, where your mind just can't get there. It just can't see it. But if I relinquish my ego and let my heart see it, eventually I'll see that the love in it. It's all about love, whether we're protecting someone or defending someone or defending ourselves. It's all about love. And when I start thinking about that and saying, oh, I choose happiness today, no matter what comes my way, I choose to be happy in that experience. And I don't have to worry about the other person because love trumps everything. And so when I start thinking like this, life becomes easier. Relationships become clear. And then I can relinquish that which no longer serves me in ease and elegance and be all right with it. And it's important for me to stay in this in order to live in this world. Otherwise, I'll just go into seclusion. I'll go into that. I don't want to say anything. I don't feel like speaking anything that I see as truth because you wouldn't understand it anyway. So let me just keep it to myself and pray on it and let God do it. That whole saying of let go and let God. I use it a lot in this world because everybody has an ego and everybody thinks they're right and they work from what they know and only what they know. And that's all right. It's all right for me to be all right with them living their life the way they want. It's like that existentialism. I can accept whatever you do over there. Just don't bring it over here. I don't want it. I'm not taking that offer right now. I think I'll stay. And so what happened for me is I am constantly looking at how I am in a relationship. Um, and be all right when it shows up to do a confrontation or a conversation about whatever ailed us at one point in time. Time and love heals everything, whether we realize it or not, whether we accept it or not. I don't have to defend myself and why I did anything. It's like, don't give them too much information, Rosa, because too much information will confuse people and they think that they then have a right to spit up on me. And I'm not wiping up your stuff in my mind. So I don't give you space in my mind. I try hard to keep my mind cleared. And no matter how much I didn't understand the Course in the beginning, what I did was just, okay, after a while, realize that it's very simple. It's so simple that I might miss it. Just say the things, Rosa. Just put them on your phone so that when that buzzer rings, you can say, today I choose happiness. Today I choose to be in line with God's joy and his reason for creating me. And that was to be happy in this world that He has given us to enjoy and not be in conflict with. You know, just let me be in my happiness. And if you think you're going to spit up on me, let me reassure you there's nothing you can do that would destroy me, no matter what. I cannot be attacked. I choose happiness in all of this, no matter what it feels like. Today, I choose happiness. And when that happiness comes, then I am overjoyed. Then I can laugh out loud and I can be all right with it, because it's not about holding on to stuff. It's about letting it go, realizing it, letting it go, and just letting things happen in the most pleasant of ways.
Bob, I hope you heard your answer in that. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Whoa.
George.
George.
Go ahead,
So
George.
good to have you
Hi,
here again.
George.
Well, I think I don't know if Rosa heard Bob's question before, but Rosa came in and I think gave Bob his answer. And we don't always have to say anything. We just hold the space in our mind. As Rosa said, send love, but also don't forget to ask love, because if you're supposed to say something, the right words will come. But sending love. What I like, Bob, is the Field of Dreams, the doctor's knowing wink. Whenever I'm thinking what to say, just give the knowing wink. But I just wanted to say hi. I got my Jesus alarm today went off to come here. And I just wanted to say hello to everybody and remind everybody that we do have a Facebook room. So if you want to keep in touch between meetings, please remember you can join us there. Have a great day.
Hey, George, I think you just need to adjust your Jesus alarm and kind of come here more often because we always love to have you here. But I want to say something. I just started to put it in the chat, in the general chat, and I'll finish it. I love Tamara for a very special reason. I love your mind. I love your heart. I love you. And you're like a rudder for me. Because if I'm going too far in one direction or another, even though I'm not thinking, my words can be understood to think I'm going in a different direction from where I thought or even know that I'm heading. And you keep the boat going right down the middle. And it means that people who are getting lost because they've taken some detours from their own chosen roads, and whoops, I got to a dead end here. I got to go back. Now, what do I do? Well, Tamara, you've got so many different types of backdrops here that one of them is going to work for almost anyone. And I want that to be understood that that's my approach as well. However, I was really, and I think this is important for me to say. My goal is in understanding for me what's the best way to go. Now, I don't have to solve everything for everybody else, but I want to solve it for myself. That brings up a question that's the question, George, that I didn't quite enunciate. What does the word understand mean? And is it even possibly a little bit literally? And so here's what I'm going to say. This is the picture that I got from listening to I think more people than we've ever had on this stage before at the same time that want to speak about it, which means it's a great hot topic. Here's my understanding of the word understanding. Because a lot of times that's used in arguments. You don't understand me. Well, you don't understand me. Well, there you go. And, the fact that we don't understand each other, and it goes on and on. But what does that really mean? All right, here's the way I see it. In my own way of thinking, there's only one real way to figure out what this universe is made of. And my understanding is it's made up of ideas. Okay, there's a million, gazillion, googillion ideas out there. Now, let's say to use Tamara's comments, and we could just as easily use, let's put Gary Renard in one silo, meaning all of Gary Renard's approach to A Course in Miracles is in one silo. Then we're going to put all of the yoga truths in another silo. And then we're going to put all of the ideas for Christianity in another silo. And so on and so on. You get the idea. Which silo are you most interested in standing under? Or which silo would you like standing under you? Either way, it still works. And people will choose those kinds of silos, approaches to truth throughout life. And the only thing different between me and Tamara is I've had a lot more time to choose. Bless your heart, Tamara, as they say in the South here. I love having you bring up that this is said there and this is also said there. All of these things are true because a lot of those ideas are in all the silos. And so it takes a lifetime or two to try and go through all of these. Gary Renard is a direct descendant, so to speak, of A Course in Miracles. And he takes it in one direction with some extra explanations. And I love his stuff. In fact, I think last I heard, he was going to marry the daughter of Helen Schuckman or something. And if anybody has an update, that's fine. But even that's not as important as find your own silo that you can stand on top of, or that is standing under you, and that works for you today. And Rosa, I love you. You don't mince any words. You found your soul, your silo, and you're there. That's great. And Louisa has one, and Janine has one, and Stella has one, and everybody here has one. No two are exactly the same. And I think that that's why so many people got interested in this particular topic, because we're trying to choose. We'd like to know if this is the best way. It says it's the easiest way and the fastest way. Well, does that work for you as best? Maybe, maybe not. Tamara, just to abuse you here, Tamara, you like to keep looking. You're learning all these different things, that all the different ways, and it's wonderful. And I would never be the one to say that road will lead you here, that road doesn't get you where you want to go, blah, blah, blah. So everybody needs to find their own silo of the best ideas that work for them, that they're willing to be on top of, and let it stand under you and support you in your life. Now, that was my question, and that was the answer I just figured out. It came on the heels of what everybody was saying. I said, how do you put all of this together and make a decision on your pathway? So I'll leave with that question. Thanks.
It's interesting though. I don't see myself as looking as much as finding, and it to me, it's all one path. It's just different ideas. But I'm gonna sit with that for a bit because, um, yeah, yeah, that's all I can say on that.
Uh,
Um,
did I
yeah,
leave everybody speechless? I didn't mean.
yeah, kind of.
Come on, Tom. You can always talk. But go on, Timer. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, 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 no worries. I was, yeah, done.
I would just say that it's kind of presumptuous to say that I've been here longer than somebody else because we've all been here since the beginning of time. And whenever you start looking and thinking that my age, my chronological age in this lifetime is some determination or indication of my experience, I think you're missing hundreds of thousands of previous experiences that we just have chosen to temporarily forget. So, everybody uh, already knows everything, and it's just deciding to remember. And there is no such thing as this idea that because I'm 14 versus somebody that's 42, that the 42-year-old maybe has had more experiences in this lifetime, but they're not necessarily the only experiences that we can call into our awareness. So, they this is why I think maybe we're all teachers and we're all students, because even the youngest chronologically around here uh, in this lifetime may be the greatest teacher that we need. Thank you. I got to leave. Create a
Oh,
great day. Bye.
well,
Well, you've been with us here for a couple of hours, and I appreciate your time. I'm really glad everybody's been here. It's been a big session, and I love it. Today was workbook lesson 116. It was a review lesson, and we went through that a couple of times. If you got to go and be about your day, thanks for coming. We'll be back here tomorrow at about 6:30, 6:37 to read lesson 117. Thanks, everybody. I'm glad you're here. And if you want, that could be all for the day for you. And if you want to stay and share, you can do that too. But I think several of us have to get on and be about our days.
well, I want to. I'm sorry Tom left, but I did want to respond to him and say, Tom, you said earlier you came from a different way of finding out all these truths, and when you got here, you found they were all here. Something to that effect. And then just now you said something about it's true because we've had so many lifetimes. We were here since before the beginning of time. Well, that in itself is one pathway that teaches that. Not all pathways teach that. So you're already on one particular path that works for you. And this is just to say that each of us has to find what path works. And if the idea of um, infinite reincarnations is helpful for you to understand yourself today, put it in your silo. And as you start to put the ideas that really work, the ones you want to keep going, just like Rosa, you can have one or you can have 10 gazillion ideas, and it's more somewhere in the middle for most people. And being on the earth a certain amount of time, as it is today, we're living in, we have to decide what are we supposed to be doing or what is in our best interest for doing today. And many of us come here to this room, to other rooms about Course in Miracles, to Facebook to keep George happy. um, but wherever you find it, that's great. Everybody needs to find the best path for them. Those that feel that this is helping them, glad to have you here. Bring more people. That's about all I have to say for today. Thank you. I'm gonna
I
have to.
just on the topic of everybody's unique path, I want to kind of just touch on or just point the light back to yesterday, the
Mm,
conversation about the 12 signs, because um that's part of our, I mean, in my understanding, the chart, and so it's so much more complex than the 12 signs, right? And sometimes our sun sign really isn't even the most prominent thing in our personality, because we've got an ascendant and we've got a moon and you've got all this other stuff. But I just want to say that our paths can be uh like shown, or not shown like in the sense we're bound to it, but we can get some kind of clarity. And I'm not making a plug for astrology, I'm just saying, because when I think, when when Bob, when you say to me about always looking for new things, I think, oh, that's that's a packed Sagittarius sixth house, like busy, 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 seeking, 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 nonstop. And there's nothing, it's not like I'm not, like, it's okay. That's the personality, the body I came into, um, that's just what naturally comes out of me. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, and because I have that, because I got my chart and I can see it there, I can kind of just say, okay, yeah, well, that's what I'm doing in this body. Do you know? So anyway, I just wanted to say that, because I think it, because I remembered it from yesterday. That's all. Yeah.
It's all good. Stella, I love your icon. It shows us which silo you're in.
For Michael down below, I will post the link to our Facebook group right now in our. Ah, yeah, it's already there. But this. Ah, in the chat. Where is it? Ah, yeah, but it's not a link. So, I mean, in this chat, the links that you post are not really links. So, I guess I could. What? Ah, okay. No, it's just that in the room chat doesn't appear like a link. So, Michael, I'm gonna share the Facebook group in our main page here, and I hope you can grab the connection from there. I'm doing it too. Share, copy link, and we are going to change this here. Okay, there it is, Michael, and for everybody that was wondering about that.
It's the morning coffee group.
Yes.
It's, yeah, morning coffee, ACIM morning coffee in Facebook. But the link is already on the top of our room right now.
Yeah,
If you want to follow the link right now.
I just did it on my laptop. Just searched
Great.
it. Just searched it. ACIMD.
Thank you. And I'm super glad to see faces that I have seen in so long. Greg and Stella, Luisa. Oh my God, so
Down in
many
the
people.
audience, there's a
Thank you.
guy named Christopher Parker who lives here in Haverhill, the same town we just moved to. He's not.
Hello.
Hi, my friend. You have been so
Hi,
busy
I'm
with
so
your yoga
sorry.
business and so.
Yeah, I'm very well busy in a very healthy and nice way, but I am really having a lot of private clients and also clients coming to the studio. So yeah, that's why
Wow.
I've been a little bit off. But listening in the background anyway, and I wanted to say something related with, I think already, I shared it already about happiness is a decision, and it's always it has been like my motto, or I don't know how to say it, like my slogan. And I remember when I met my partner, you have to imagine I am a Colombian, warm, laughing, good humor. It's very difficult to get me angry, and my partner is a Belgian Nordic style Viking, quite serious, and he was taking at the beginning life very, very serious, and he was taking himself very serious, and everything around, and the traffic, and the colleagues, and his boss, and whatever. And then I just said, and then for one reason, we were having a beautiful relationship at the beginning, and he was a widow, he's a widow, I'm a widow, and we met each other with two teenagers, and we started that relationship. And so I was like a mother for his daughter. And one of a sudden, he came one day to my home, and I am very organized, but my kitchen was I had done the dishes. I didn't have a machine then, So I had done the dishes, but they were just drying on the plate. They were not already, like in the cabinets. They were just drying out, but they were clean, and my kitchen was very clean. But he just couldn't stand that chaotic kitchen. For him, for me, it was just a clean kitchen with some plates just drying off. And after, I think, 6 months of relationship, he decided to end the relationship. And then and then the
Really?
reason and then the reason was that he couldn't stand my kitchen.
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
come
What?
on. I mean, like, what? And then I said, like, you are giving a mother for your child. We are having such a great time. We just came back from Berlin. We had great time together. We are having so much fun. And you are ending this relationship, this huge happiness opportunity, because my plates are not dried. Like, what? The heck are you thinking?
Oh my
And
God.
then that was when I took out my card under my sleeve and said, like, happiness is a decision, my dear. If you are going to start to depend of my stupid plates on my kitchen, and you're going to let depend your happiness on them, then you have a serious problem. And then he needed 2 weeks to reflect. and
To
then,
change his mind.
and after 2 weeks he came back and he said, like, oh, I'm so sorry, can we restart all over? And I said, I'm not drying my plates. I mean, I'm not going to change. I'm not drying my plates.
Yeah,
I'm just
if your I mean, if it minds you, well, do it yourself. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
it's
And
as
he and
simple
we were
as
not
that.
living together. I mean, come on. And then and of course we came back, and since then we've never been off again. I mean, well, yeah, no, at the beginning it was like a roller coaster anyway, because of the differences of being. And then he took that that lemma, or that slogan, for him as well. And then now he's laughing when things are happening in the traffic, or with colleagues, or then he just switched into the, yeah, I choose in this moment to be happy, and nothing external is going to interrupt that sense of happiness within me. So thank you, Rosa, for this. I don't know if she's still here. She's not. But
No, she's
is
down.
she?
Well, I
I,
see her by your side, in fact.
okay. So, oh yeah. So thank you. And yeah, I'm done speaking. I'm happy to be back.
I
I'm
I
glad to
get
hear.
I get from Louisa's share that her boyfriend's shift in perception is now that happiness is drying plates in the kitchen.
Yeah, and now the news after the result of that, we moved together. We've been living together for about 2 years now, and our kitchen is fine. We have a wash machine is doing the work, and two children putting the plates back in place. So yeah, everything is working out.
Yeah, you maybe the two of you should have as a symbol that you put on the wall somewhere on the kitchen. Put a plate, and just put a plate up on the wall, so there's just always a plate there, and that's the symbol of your love. Maybe,
I
I don't know.
love that idea. I love that idea. I will do, and you know what? Yeah, I love that idea.
That it's
And
a
I will
present.
post. I will post a picture that my plus daughter, so his daughter, made on school. I think they were creating mother's gifts. She didn't say that it was for me, but I don't know. But she made a plate. She painted a plate, and it's saying something like, choose happy. I yeah,
Yeah.
it's somewhere.
Like
So
choosing.
I will share, because now that you mentioned, she just made a plate and she painted something on it, and it's something like choosing happiness above all, something like that.
That
So
is
yeah, now that
great.
you mention,
Wow.
yeah, I will. I don't find it. It's here somewhere in the kitchen, um, and I will wait for Mother Day. Maybe it is a gift, maybe not. But anyway, I will. When I find it, I take a picture and I post it, because it's a great, yeah, great idea. Thank you, Sean.
Beautiful,
Good
yeah.
morning. Good morning. Can I mention something, please?
Of course,
I
Rosa.
found the Course in Miracles confusing and it's too simple for my mind to comprehend in the beginning. But one of the things that brought me to A Course in Miracles was a change in my life. And at the same time that the book found me, was the same time that I was going through sobriety. I don't know if anybody has had that experience. About 14 years ago, I decided that I needed to change my life. I wasn't happy. And I used to ask myself, why? What is it about my life that's not making me happy? Um, and in that, I became um, a member of AA. And in that, I became a member of A Course in Miracles because they found me at the same time. So the whole time I was doing the workbook, and it was real difficult until I stopped each statement. You know, your mind says, "Oh, I can't be attacked." But then why is so and so calling me such and such? Why is such and such? Why are these people bothering me? What is it? But they're not. It's my mind that's bothering me. So once I um, realized that I was going under transformation and accepted it, then it became easier for me to say these statements and really truly allow them to change me, as opposed to me giving all the reasons why they didn't work. Life is so simple that it's complicated for us as humans. It's like God created all these things, gave us all these abilities to create all these things to make life easier, and yet and still they make life more complicated when we first get involved. And that's what happened to me. It became very difficult. I had to simplify it. I had to just accept the statement for the statement's sake and allow it to do its work. And I think as an intellectual being, God created us to make our own choices, to make our own decision to change, to accept Him, to come to His understanding, the conscious creator of everything, because everything I believe comes from God. Even things that hurt come to us to awaken us, and it became much easier. And the course is such a great course that it goes over these things constantly. The first 20 statements are stated throughout the course in many different ways, but they all say the same thing. The best thing is love and forgiveness, no matter what. Grace is given to us, and we should give it back to each other and not hold each other hostage for whatever decision we made at the time of that experience, because we did the best we could. Everybody does the best they can, even if they're not really realizing it. We do and make the best decisions with the information that we have thus far to this point what is this, April 26th. We make the best decisions based upon the best information that we have thus far. And until we get something different, we can't make a different decision. It's like, it's just automatic if we just relax and let love do its work. Again, I state that,
Hey,
love.
Rose,
love
let's pick up. I'm sorry. Okay.
Hey, I'm done. I am complete.
Okay. I was not a member of AA, but I was a member of another quote anonymous group, and I happen to believe, and this is not gospel, nobody else has to agree at all, but I happen to believe that the same author that authored A Course in Miracles also essentially authored the 12-step program, which was written after, in about 20 minutes, according to tradition, of all the anonymous groups that followed after Alcoholics Anonymous. And that it was written, in fact, it was written in 1935. So you've got about 30 years between that book that helps anybody who is addicted to something and that they see that it's destroying or really messing up their life and they can't stop. In this case, they need other people who have been able to stop that particular addiction or habit, even gambling. So it's not just substances. And then they can look at, because if you read the 12 steps in this light, you can use it for all kinds of things that you feel compelled to do that are clearly self-destructive. So I think that that is kind of, in a way, quite a summation, a pretty nice summation of most of the principles, I'm going to say, in this book that's 1,946 pages thick. All right. And those are the things that we embrace that work. Rosa, with your experience, from what I'm hearing, that gave you such a jump ahead over many other little obstacles that other people like to explore, that you came to where you are right now because of that experience. You needed that experience of abstaining from something in order to clear up your perfect path forward. So even there, I think there isn't anybody here who wouldn't agree to say they're figuring out as they go along their own best path. And it's really simple. You try this. If it works, fine, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, stop it. If it works sometimes, then you can become very scientific and you can make decisions that way. Or sometimes you can just make a global decision like Rosa did and just decided she didn't have to explore all those other highways and byways. I'm just making a general statement. No one has to agree with me. No one has to disagree with me. You can do anything you want with it. But that's just what I happen to personally think actually occurred on this planet. Thanks.
I
I
I
agree
re-
with you. I really agree with you. I think that we go through, there's a lot of paths, and all the Creator wants us to do is choose one. There is no right or wrong. The Course says this. There is no separation. Every road we take will lead us to an awakening if we allow it, if we don't get into our intellectualizing it, if we don't find reasons or a method to escape as opposed to going through it. You know, the only way to succeed is to go through it, grow through it. And that's what we're doing. Um, so really appreciate you guys. I am finding more and more out about you all every day that I come. And I am so grateful that I found you guys or you found me. I don't know how it happened, um, but I'm grateful that it did.
Have you
And
been checking up on my criminal record?
you say what?
I was just kidding. You